On today's show, we are live on Twitter, on YouTube, and on the Bookface on Facebook. We're live on all three of those. I'm joined by AJ Jackson from Northern Utah Ballers, and our first time, and hopefully not our last time guest, the godfather of Utah basketball, Timothy Drisdom. This is the Utah High School Hoops Podcast, your source for sometimes informative, but always entertaining coverage of the Utah high school hoop scene. With your host, Adam Meek. Thanks for coming in. Got a repeat guest already. I'm like 5 episodes in, AJ.
Let's go.
Back on.
I didn't wear out my welcome, so that's a good thing, right?
I got Coach Casey Stanley already calling it our podcast. So I guess y'all can fight it out, or it could just be everyone's. We're just a podcast for the people. So I'm joined here by AJ Jackson. In roughly 10 minutes, we're hoping. We're going to be joined by Tim Drisdom, who is obviously, if you've been around Utah basketball for a while, then you know Tim. And when he comes on, we'll let him do a quick introduction. But I've asked these two to come on for a number of reasons. Number one, they both love the game of basketball, and they both love the game of basketball in Utah. And I think because of probably selfish interests, you both have been paying attention to 5A basketball. Fair to say?
Yeah, I think that's a fair assumption, right? We're both heavily invested, I guess you could call it. But we're going to try and be as unbiased as possible today. I know I am. Not sure about Tim. We'll see what Tim's temperature is when he gets in here. Excited to talk hoops with that guy.
We're gonna have a 25-minute session on Highland and a breakdown of every player. No, I mean, I think you guys have both done a great job of admitting. I try to just say the same thing. I'm like, of course I'm biased. I have a kid who plays basketball, but I'm also really biased towards Utah basketball. I think that the state. It's okay for us to be biased towards the state of Utah in terms of how it's sort of underrated. So real quickly, I don't know how many people are going to be able to watch this on YouTube. As AJ pointed out, it's 4:30 on a school day. And so there's probably a lot of players who would love to be tuning in live. But I'm also a 43-year-old father of 5. And so doing this at times when players can jump on, we might have alternating schedules, but we'll try to this. But if you are watching live and you're on YouTube, I believe is the only one that I can see comments on. You can comment on YouTube while you're watching it. And then if you got questions, I can actually pull the comments up into the live recording and we can answer them. We'd love to do that. So if you're on YouTube, that's awesome. If you're not, that's fine. If you're watching it on Twitter, if you're listening to it on repeat, please send me your questions, guest suggestions, all that kind of stuff. Would love to have it. Kev, let me tell you something about Kev. So this is Isaiah's mom, and I've been streaming games on YouTube for parents for a few years now. So I'll just bring my stuff. I've got this StreamYard, and instead of having to pay collectively $150 to Baller TV, I'll just try my best to stream them on YouTube. And Kev is the most frequent commenter on all of the live streams there. And I love that she's come back through for our 5A preview. And that's the last thing that we're going to mention about Isaiah, I'm sure.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah. You know what's funny about Baller TV is that I never realized that there's a hot mic on Baller TV, the cameras. You look at those cameras and you think there's no audio. They just go back and forth. And luckily, the one game when somebody said, "Yeah, we heard your entire commentary," I'm trying to think back and trying to remember, okay, what was I talking? Who was I talking about? Because you could easily get yourself into some trouble when you're at those games and you're broadcasting. So,
oh my gosh, you should hear some of my comments. I think there was one game with Congo last year, and we were playing. They were an EYBL team. They were a 3 SSB team. I think it was. Game Elite or somebody like that from Atlanta. And it was a contentious game. I mean, parents are yelling at refs, and I just like Papa Bear kind of like welled up inside of me, and I just finally lost it. I was joining right in, and I'm like, oh shoot, I am live streaming this game. I'm so sorry, everybody. You didn't need to hear all of that.
Yeah, it's a good thing that my wife wasn't tuning into that particular game. So, but I'm one of those though. I mean, I'm sure Tim's the same way. I'm not a coach from the stands. I just sit there and I try and mind my P's and Q's. But I'm probably more critical of my own son's play than anybody else on the team. So, but the thing is like, that's the reason why I couldn't coach him anymore, right?
Yeah,
Is
me too.
because we wouldn't get along. And
I know.
so I just let him do his thing and just sit in the stands and quietly film the game so that we can break it down later. But yeah, that's always an interesting dynamic. I'd rather be behind the camera with him than on the sidelines. Great kid, but he's intense. He plays with that edge, so I love it.
And thank you, Kev, for calling my commentary top notch. I live streamed a judge play, scrimmage Corner Canyon,
Mhm.
and I live streamed the game, and I was trying to like commentate as best I could on the game, and I
Just
just
the
learned like
play-by-play.
to be the videographer slash play-by-play slash color commentator of a high school basketball scrimmage was tough. And also, I'll just give a huge shout out to the Judge Memorial Bulldogs. They lost that game by 3, I think,
Yeah.
to Corner Canyon. So it was a really fun game, a fun scrimmage to watch. I mean, there were refs and everything like that. So
No,
and
Judge got some talent. We talked a little bit about that the other night. I mean, you think about JJ Pathgang and what he brings, and I look at that particular kid, and he's just oozing with talent and potential, and I feel like he's ready for a breakout. Like I feel like he's going to break out, have a great year. I want to see from the point guard. I'm a point guard. Tim's a point guard. I want to see it using those skills to get other people's good looks, right? To get them
yep,
easy baskets, to get good looks, because the kid is so talented. He's oozing with talent. And so use that to get your team rolling. And then obviously the points that you need are going to come along with it. You're going to get open shots. You're going to get drives to the bucket. But, we talked a little bit about what colleges want from a point guard. The kid has everything as far as athletic gifts. Now it's just making sure you're playing that position the way it's supposed to be played. And man, he's gonna have a
no
great
doubt.
couple of years.
Yeah, and
Great
he's
couple of
just
years.
he's just a junior, and he did that I mean, to be totally clear, that Corner Canyon game, he did all of what you just described, and I was actually
Love it.
glad I was able to live stream it. I think he's able to grab that film and send
That's
it out
good.
to, connect it up with some coaches. So but we're not here to talk about the, Judge Memorial Bulldogs. We're gonna be talking about, the doing kind of a 5A season preview,
Mhm.
so I'm excited for Tim to jump on whenever he's able to. I know he was stuck in traffic, but he gave me the heads up, 10 minutes. So, um, I don't know how you want to. This is the first time I've ever done this. So I've
Mhm.
looked at, like, I've got the Prep Hoops came out with their sort of top 10. I know Deseret News has their top 5. I don't really know this to me. I'm guessing this is all a fairly subjective, but also baked in with some objectivity to it. Obviously,
Sure.
ranking. So AJ, you let me know. You've been covering this game and
Mhm.
following for a while. Do we want to jump in? We can start at like number 10 on Prep Hoops and work our way
Yeah.
up. Seems like maybe that's kind of the top 10 teams. And
If you look at the top 10, I would love to start on number 10, obviously. But
I was going
when
to say that's a pretty easy one for me to start with.
when you think about 5A basketball, right? The biggest question is, are we looking at the Alta Invitational, right?
Mm,
Obviously, we'll get to Alta. We'll talk about all the guys they have coming back, and they're battle tested. They got size, they got athleticism, they got a point guard. Can anyone unseat those guys this year? That's the big question. And so as we go down through this list, we got to look at matchups. We got to look at experience. We got to look at, who's going to match up well, be able to keep, Ace Riser out of the paint, who's going to be able to keep Jax Johnson off the boards and guard him out to the 3-point line. And then the guy that we'll talk about in a little bit, Carter Doliak, has really evolved his game. And so, is this the Alta Invitational? Let's break it down. Let's start at 10. Let's go through that top 10
now
on Prep Hoops and see what we
here's
got.
here's going to be the real question: is can this kid from Colorado, in being me, pronounce the Utah names in schools correctly? Because I forget what I've said. Well, obviously there's hurricane, and y'all are crazy for the hurricane stuff. It's not. It's just hurricane. That's what it is. There's no
Yeah.
world in which it's possible that it's pronounced hurricane. But I've said like I was corrected on Timpanogos.
Timpanogos.
I was told that was wrong. There was no way I could pronounce what's the mountain range? The Ochres. Someone was like, "You don't know how to say ochre?" I'm like, "It looks like a word that doesn't exist. I don't know what to tell you." So I'll do my best to pronounce the
Here's
even when I was first traveling here for work, I was like driving around. I asked a friend of mine, I'm like, "What's up with all the desserts around?" And they were like, "No, that's Deseret." I'm like, "Oh, okay." So I'm
here,
learning about
here's the
Utah
key.
culture.
I'm going to give you some advice from a transplant. I've been here since I was 20 years old, so we're about 25 years in here. Is just say it like you think it is and keep it moving.
And wait to get corrected. All right.
No, just keep it. Just keep going.
Keep going. All right. Well,
Just
then
act like you own the place. Act like you know what you're talking about,
got it.
and keep moving. That's what I do all the time, and I'm still wrong. Probably 75% of the time. So
Well, then I'm just going to head right on out to Tueli, and we'll start off here. We've got Mr. Utah basketball every year. Every year he's Mr. Basketball in Utah. Looks like he's finally coming through. We're going to pull him up on the stage.
Timmy D. Let's
Mr.
go.
Tim Drisdom. What's up?
What's going on, fellas?
Hey, where are you in like a live? Where are you? What's happening?
I am in Los Angeles.
I know that.
I just dropped off a rental car, and I'm at the Westin Hotel in the lobby, just hanging out.
Oh, you're just gonna chill. You're just doing that. You didn't even go to your room.
Just looking like I belong. Didn't
okay.
no checking in, no. Nah, man.
I love it.
I'm just gonna look the part and let people just walk around and just like, is should he?
Just wait till we get to Highland. He starts getting animated. They're gonna call security over. We're gonna have a problem right on the live
stream. no animation here, man. This is gonna be the extent of that.
It's gonna be so good. It's gonna be so good. All right, so Timothy, what we have decided is that we are gonna start with Prep Hoops, and they have their top 10. And since AJ was the only one on, I was like, well, let's start off with number 10 on the Prep Hoops 5A preseason rankings. Is a team called Woods Cross. AJ, tell me what you know about Woods Cross boys basketball in Utah. Probably a little bit.
I'll go through what they have coming back. I would love to get Tim's insight on their main player, Hunter Jackson, which is their main guy coming back. Obviously, last year they lost a lot of guys, right? They were very senior heavy with good seniors. You had Jackson Smith, who's up at Utah State, Mason Bendinger, who was just put on an all-world performance 2 years ago in the state playoff run. Lost both those guys. Mason over at Salt Lake Community College doing well. And so, people would look at it, okay, who do you got coming up? But when you look at the roster, they actually have some pieces. Obviously, at the point guard position, 2025, Hunter Jackson. I expect a big year out of him. Played really well in the top 50. But, Adam, we talked about Bryson Watson and what he was doing on that NXT game. I've watched Bryson closely. I coached him. He was playing a year up with my group for a couple years there. And then, him and Hunter have been in the gym every day, it seems like, over the summer. And it's translated because he's had some just monster games. I believe one of the scrimmages against Farmington that we played, I think he had 27. Great Western Classic, he had a 25-plus game on four dribbles or less. He's a catch and shoot guy, which is perfect because if you have a point guard that can distribute the basketball and get people open, that's what you need, right? Yep. Inside, they got a 6'9" guy, Eli Nicholas, really unknown guy. He's a senior, big body, but he's coming off an injury. So it's going to be interesting to see how quickly he can round back into shape. They expect him back before, they got a tough stretch. They got a week where they play Alta and then they turn around and play American Fork. So they expect him back by those two games, which, we're going to need him. And then at the 4 spot, you got a guy like Hayden Polton, who's if you've ever seen him play, the kid's 6'4", 6'5", and can absolutely jump out of the gym. So huge, athleticism that he brings. So, what does that look like? I don't know, right? It's going to be interesting to see. I'd love to get Tim's take on what he saw from Hunter in the top 50, but I think they're going to go as far as Hunter and Bryson take them, but they do have some guys that can make shots. They got, some seniors that are in there that can do some things. And, if they play the role, they're going to be competitive.
Tim, let's hear your, we've got 3 dads. Like we're going to be super biased, or critically harsh on our kids.
I think he's terrible, but I want Tim Sagan.
Oh my No, I mean, I think you said it. One, every good team goes as far as their point guard, I believe, and that's not a biased opinion. I think we've seen
As
it
the
across
point
the
guard.
board. I mean, we've seen it across the board at every level, and so the one thing that I won't say the one thing like it's just one thing, but I think one of the best things that I saw, one of the best qualities that I saw in Hunter this during the top 50 anyway, was that he was playing with a bunch of guys that maybe he knew, but they weren't his high school teammates. He's not used to playing with them, but you could tell that he was immediately the vocal leader on the floor. He was immediately, directing traffic. He was immediately garnering the trust of his guys. He showed his ability to score the ball, which was great, but also he showed his ability to make plays for others. And so anytime you have a guy who can be dynamic in that way, and you put some guys around him that can do some things. You put a big around him that, maybe he's a little unpolished, but he can probably, catch and make a layup, off of a drive if he can dump it down, or he's got some shooters that he can throw to, when he collapses the defense. Then, man, and I think, he's a type of and these are rare kids, and I wouldn't even say that my kid is one of these guys yet, but like these are rare kids that you see that when you walk in, you know exactly where that kid is on the floor because of his voice, because of his presence on the floor. And he's in great shape. You can tell he's worked really, really hard. He's a winner. You can tell he wants to win, wants to make winning plays. So I'm not familiar with the rest of the guys, but a lot of what I can imagine their success will be around him. And I think he gives them a chance for sure.
Well, Tim, we did watch Bryson, by the way, at that next game when he was
right. Oh, that's right. That's right. Yeah. Can really shoot it. Yeah. Can really shoot it. I mean, he can get it off at any time, in any space. And so, he doesn't need long. And I think, I forgot he was there. They'll be dangerous.
The region's not easy, right? I mean, that region, I think the region is wide open. I would probably look at Baniful maybe being the favorite in that region, but you got teams up and down that region that can play. They got some good players. They got some good shooters. And so, I think Woods Cross will be right there in the mix. It'll be interesting to see how it plays out. When it comes to point guards, I trust Tim more than anybody. So I'll take his words and we'll run with them. So
and we'll get to Bountiful here in a little bit, but the next team on here, and if we can't listen, I said this when I first started this podcast. I'm going to do my best to get people on who I know more than me, which is the majority of people in terms of Utah basketball. I love the game of basketball, but I'm not a Utah basketball historian by any stretch. So apologies if we don't fully cover your team. And if you want to have somebody come on, hit me up. We'll have the coach on. It's going to be, this isn't something that anyone's trying to get rich off of. It's about promoting the game and using this format to do it. So the number 9 team we got on here is Brighton. And at least on Prep Hoops, it says Brighton has 3 solid players and more, but Bradley Easton can shoot the ball. He has range. He's a high percentage shooter. Noah Matheson is one of the best slashers and get to the rim and free throw line players. Then they have a new move in Jackson Soto, who will add lead guard skills and a scoring punch. That's what I got on Brighton from Prep Hoops.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at that, Tim, obviously Jackson Soto coming over from Olympus is a big ad for them, right? I mean, he's been sitting behind, obviously, 2 great guards over there with Jordy and Dutch and even Gavin Lowe, so 3. And so he transferred over to Brighton. It's going to be nice to see him to be able to get on the floor. He played for UBC Elite on the gold circuit during the summer. Jackson's a great player. He's quiet. I would like to see him I'd like to see him being more vocal on the floor, but got a chance to watch Brighton at the Great Western Classic. You talk about Soto, you talk about Matheson. Bradley Easton's a kid. It's 6'3", somewhere in that neighborhood, 6'3", and he is lanky as you can. Oh, and he's been that way since I can remember. If you leave him open, he's going to drop 3 on your head. So, Brighton's always a team that you look at them and you're like, okay, and then they just seem to make shots. They seem to make plays. They're disciplined. And so, they're going to go as far as those 3 guys that you mentioned take them, I think. But looking at the Great Western Classic, I watched them play an entire game, and they look pretty dang good. And the addition of Soto gives them some more athleticism. Soto, has played on good stages, throughout AAU. So I think he's ready to prove that, he's ready to go. He has 2 good years. He's a 2025, like Easton is. So, Tim, it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. If they can get some production up front, I think they'll have a good year. I don't know. I don't see them making a run at the Final Four, but I think they'll have a good year.
Tim, what are your thoughts?
Yeah.
Is it the Brighton? What's their mascot?
Bengals.
The Brighton Bengals. I was going to say Tigers. I was obviously wrong. They went alliteration on me.
They have some old school like Indiana Hoosier warm-ups, I believe.
They do.
They're like orange and white. They're terrific. They're so terrific. That's the word that comes to mind. But no, they're in our region. We played them twice last year. What I do know, I mean, I don't want to like echo everything that Drew said, but I do know, Tim Gardner, their head coach, he gets a lot out of his guys. They muddy the game a lot. They play a very grimy style of basketball, and sometimes when you're not as talented or maybe trying to find your way, that's the fact that you play a different style can really, that can really add some opportunities to those that you probably wouldn't have if you didn't. So when I look at how they play, and then they don't call him Bradley Buckets for nothing. I thought his last name was really Buckets for a whole season.
Like Charlie.
But I learned, I learned that his last name was Easton, so I refuse to call him Buckets. If I'm a Highland fan, I can't call him Buckets. So, but no, good player, can shoot it. He's lanky, and he's actually a little tougher than you would think. Just a little tougher.
Grimy. I love that.
Yeah. It's got some edge to him, and you got to play with some edge. So, excited to see what they'll do.
All I kept thinking of was when I hear like long shooter. I don't know why, but I think of Tayshaun Prince, like just a guy that like kind of catches you off guard a little bit. I mean, obviously Tayshaun Prince is a lot bigger than 6'3", but just someone who you're like, he just plays bigger than he actually is tall. Anyway. We'll keep moving here. Number 8 is Juan Diego, who I should probably be more familiar with, but this is our first year at Judge. I do know that they lost, speaking of Brighton, they lost Brighton, Darrell, and Noah, who all went to Corner Canyon. Looks like they brought in some players. I got to watch Andre Olivo at the next game, and I mean, he's 5'8", maybe. He's a transfer from AP.
He's a dog.
But that kid just is not afraid of anything on the basketball court, and he plays confidently. So, It sounds like Juan Diego has kind of restocked. I guess maybe not 1-to-1, but it looks like they brought in some players. Prep Hoops mentions Luke Mayer and Rahiti, and hang on. I apologize, Rahidi. I can't pronounce your last name, but I know that you've been, he's been getting some love here on Prep Hoops. So, what do you guys know about Juan Diego this year?
Yeah, I mean, just what you said. I think that you nailed it. I mean, you lose 19 points a game with Noah Bendinger going out the door, and if you've watched Brighton Valdez at Corner Canyon in the fall, in the summer and the fall, he looks great.
Yeah.
Great point guard. He is all over the place. Defensively, he's getting in people, extending it 3/4 court, full court. But I love what he's doing. He's running that offense, and they've got a lot of pieces when you think about, obviously we all know about Brody. We all know about, Taylor Farrow and how well he can shoot. But when you add somebody like Brighton in there that can get in there and distribute the basketball, now he's different than what they had last year. Last year they had a scorer at that point guard position. Brighton's not that guy. He's going to distribute the basketball and get those guys open looks. When you think about Juan Diego, that's tough. I mean, you're losing.
It's tough to lose those. Yeah,
you're losing 3
6'10" center,
really good players,
and a great point guard, no doubt.
You're losing 3 really good players. I love Rahidi's game. I watched him play a little bit in Rock Hill, South Carolina, when we were on the road out there. Really smooth, 6'4", 6'5", can shoot the ball from outside, can go inside. There's going to be opportunities.
Was he on Gold?
UBC.
Okay.
He was playing with UBC when we saw.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's going to be opportunities for guys to step up there. I don't know what the season's going to look like for them, but I think they're going to be a work in progress. But they got some guys. I mean, Rahidi's great. I love Andre and what he's about. He's a dog, my type of guy. Plays edgy, but Juan Diego. It's tough to lose those guys. But again, when people ship out, you guys got to step up.
Yep, it's time to step up. Tim, you got any thoughts on the school that I'm apparently not supposed to root for? You're muted though. Just so you know.
Well, how about that?
There you
go. No, they lost a lot, and I was actually, no offense to anybody, I was actually pretty shocked to see them as high as they were. I know 8 is not a super high ranking, but I was actually shocked to see them in the top 10. Only not because of what they have, but just because of what I know they lost, and then what they have hasn't necessarily been proven in any way. So it would be me trying to find something super good. I don't know. I think that's probably the most honest thing to say. I really don't know. I know, like I said, Bendinger, huge loss. You lose a 6'10" guy. Any school loses a 6'10" guy. You don't just have one of those. Just the next man up is cool, but he ain't gonna be 6'10".
No.
So, but yeah. So we'll see. I mean, I'm rooting for those guys as much as I possibly can. Obviously, I want the kids to do well, but I think they'll probably have a little bit more of a down year.
Yeah, well, I'm not, so I'm not rooting
Good.
for him.
Good.
I'm just told this is what I'm supposed to say as a Judge parent. Obviously, Judge isn't in 5A, so yeah. I mean, I think that with every sort of opportunity like this, like you're saying, AJ, kids get a chance to step up, and so I've seen a lot written about this Rahidi kid. Obviously, AJ, you've seen him play. He's a 2026 kid, isn't he?
I think he might. Did he reclass? I think he has a 2026. I thought he was 2025. I think he's a 2026.
I think I saw him on the rankings in 2026. Yeah. And I was like, oh, who's this kid at Juan Diego? So, it's opportunities like that then for a sophomore to step up and maybe take the lead. And you don't really know what you're going to get from that, right? Like the variance of floor and ceiling could be pretty big. So we'll see what's going on. And speaking of 2026 kids, the next team up here is Timpview. Now, like I said, admittedly, I don't like follow all of the teams and all the games. I do know that last year, Timpview didn't they beat Wasatch, or Timpview beat somebody that was like, holy crap. And Dino had a great game. He had like 18 or 19, and then he went down to Section 7 and dropped 40 on Bryce James's team. So, I mean, I think everybody probably knows, if you've been around Utah high school basketball, you know about Dean. But what else? I guess we can start. Tim, we'll start with you this time. What can you tell us about Timpview?
And the name is escaping me, but they graduated a senior last year.
James Rust.
Oh, James Rust.
Yep.
He might have been one of the most underrated high school basketball players that I've seen. Yeah. And I think, and I mean, we'll get to Dino because everybody gets to Dino, but I think that losing that guy, it'll be very interesting to see what the next man up mentality looks like for Timpview, because Dean is going to be Dean, and he's gonna, he's gonna change the game with the shooting. I'm excited to see him be a little more physical this year. I think adding that part of it, the physicality to his game, is going to be really good. And I know they've had some other really good guards. I think Mason Ford is over there, who's a pretty good shooter. Timpview will be very interesting, because I really think that the loss of Russ is a bigger deal than people think, because he added a certain certainty and trust to, like, on the floor, a guy that can, that you can go to and be trusted. He was a great leader. He scored at all levels. He just did more for that team than people think. Which I think is an amazing opportunity for Dino to say, hey, I'm ready to fully pick up the reins and be who I am, and so I think this is the year for him to do that. I think he's fully capable. I think he's fully ready. I hope that is the message that and the attitude that he goes into it with, because I think it'll be exciting for us all to see.
Yep.
AJ, I agree with what Tim was saying. He made some excellent points. I mean, you look at Dino. We all know what he's about. We've all seen the highlights. He dropped 40 something. If you haven't seen the YouTube highlights of that game, I think there's 5 minutes worth of clips on that game. He's just going crazy, catching lobs and just dominate. And so, Tim mentioned a guy, Mason Ford. I've watched him play this fall through some pickup games that have been put together down in Pleasant Grove, little secret runs. And Mason looks great. Mason looks like he's ready to play. He's super smooth. He's long. He's lengthy. Can make shots. I think he's a nice complement to what Dean is going to do. I agree with you, Tim. I think Dean can take the whole team, strap on the pack, and carry them almost. Gosh, do we get back to where we got last year? I don't know. He's that
semifinals,
guy,
right? Did they go to semifinals or finals last year?
They made it to the finals last year.
Finals, okay.
Against Alta. Yeah. He's that guy. I think matchup wise, he's just so tough because he shoots from a high angle, so you've got to get up in him, but he's quick enough to get around people too, even at 6'7", 6'8", wherever he's landing at, and he's explosive. And so he's going to make the game a lot easier for a lot of guys. A lot of guys are going to look a lot better than maybe they would playing with other guys because he's going to demand so much attention. I'm excited to see what they do. I think Timpview is the one to keep your eye on because they have the ability, because of Dean, to just make a run like they did last year. I mean, they knocked out Orem. They went right all the way to the championship game. And I agree with you, though. I think losing James Russ is a big deal. I agree with you. Very underrated. He was a prospects kid, played in some big games, and he was so smooth and calm and knocked down shots. And so they're going to miss that. But I think what Dean brings is going to make up for it.
And I'll add, I mean, speaking of like underrated players, I got to watch Braxton Wilkerson play. Tim coached him, and he's over at Timpview now. Playing football still. He's a tremendous football player. He's a kid that I watched him play. He's so strong and gritty and physical. But I mean, I watched him hang, what do you have, 26, 27 on some 3 SSB teams. He is a tremendous, if he's going to get minutes, and I have no idea, but I watched him get minutes with Congo. And, Tim could speak to how great he was. Teams didn't even realize what he can do. I mean, he's a knockdown. His shot it looks funky, but it goes in at a high rate, like a really high rate. And I mean, he had multiple games over 25 points on UAA teams, UA Rise teams, 3 SSB teams. So I'm excited to see him run.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I forgot he had transferred over he was at Orem last year, right?
Yep.
He'll be a guy and hopefully maybe their coach or somebody will watch this. You probably want to play that kid.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? He's just,
defends his position well, plays great defense.
Yeah, I don't claim to know everything about it, but I do know that he's a winner. He's tough. And he's a shot maker, and he thinks he's good, and I don't mean that like in a slight.
No,
that's not a slight. Like he legitimately plays with a confidence that if some of the best players had his confidence, it'd be a wrap.
He's Swaggy B.
He's Swaggy B.
Yeah,
he's Swaggy B. Yeah, thanks for bringing that up, Adam.
Another kid that I assume that he's going to get run is he's 6'8", Kalen Tollestrup, I think if I pronounce that right. Another young guy. He's a 2026 player, 6'8". The kid's long. I mean, you talk about he's a bigger version of Brad Easton. He's like 6'8", super lengthy, super skinny. But I expect he'll have a good season too. He's been working hard this fall and during the summer. Played with the Utah Gold on that circuit and 3S the Gold circuit with them. So they got some guys that can complement what he's going to do. Yeah, they're young. Yeah, but they're going to be a problem. They are going to be a problem. Speaking
of teams that have had some transition, at least one big transition. Next on the list is the Orem Tigers. I think it's been pretty well documented. That Anthony made the jump over to.
We can't skip Bountiful. You skip Bountiful number 6.
Shoot, my fault, Bountiful. Dang it!
Don't get me in trouble. I'm in Davis County. I gotta see these guys.
I even said we'll talk about Bountiful later. I actually have Bountiful ahead of Orem on my list. No, I don't. I don't know why I would have them. I don't. Let's not talk about Orem right now. Let's talk about Bountiful up in Davis County. I think Judge plays them this year, and so tell me all about. We actually play both Bountiful and Orem and Springville, so we've got got a pretty loaded preseason. So tell me all about Bountiful, AJ.
Yeah, I mean, when you talk about Bountiful, obviously, you got Craig Smith's son, Carson Smith, who's been a 3-year starter at Bountiful. He should have come to Woods Cross. I keep telling them that because he was all set to go to Woods Cross. He
I've
made
heard
the
there's another
decision.
player who's supposed to come to Woods Cross. Kev says so exciting to hear about these great players.
Yeah,
Let's go
we
Utah
want all of
players.
them over there, but no, Carson's a great kid. Carson's a
Tim can't hear you.
Yeah, Carson's a great kid, and he's a heck of a good player. But you throw him, and you got a guy that's another 2025, and Charlie Smith, who's probably one of the best shooters, pure shooters that Utah has to offer. 6'5", lengthy, shoots from a high angle. They've got some guys around those two that can play. Now they have, they're not names, they're not guys that you're hearing a lot about. But when you look at Bountiful, they have some guys. Now they have a football player, Falatau. If he actually suits up, and he's a very heavily recruited football player.
Okay.
If he joins them on the basketball floor, which I haven't heard either way, Bountiful is a team that you're going to want to pay close attention to because they have guys that can make a run come tournament time. New coach came up from Tentview, great coach, very motivating, Gus Sapina, and he's going to have these guys ready to go. They're going to be ready because the conference is pretty even, and there's going to be battles every night. So I think Bountiful, when you think about Carson Smith, Charlie Smith, you got the couple of the guys, the Garcia kid, I believe, is coming back. And then if Falatau joins them, and there's another kid at 2026, Davey Howe is somebody that I've heard a lot about too. If he gets a chance to bump up there, they're going to be somebody you're going to want to pay attention to. Bountiful has some guys this year. It'll be interesting to see what they do.
Are Woods Cross and Bountiful in the same?
Yeah, region? We're about 2 miles from each other.
Okay, I assume so.
we're about maybe a mile and a half from each other. So yeah, absolutely.
I used to when I would travel here for work, I would stay in Lehigh, but one of my good friends would play like early morning, like old man basketball up in Bountiful. So I would drive from Lehigh at like 5:15 to go play basketball with him, and then drive back down and get to work. That's my familiarity, is a 6 a.m. church ball in Bountiful. Tim dropped off. I don't know if maybe he was moving at the from the hotel lobby, but yeah, neighbor. Kev says they're neighbors for sure. How do you know about that, Kev? How do you know about Woods Cross? I'm just kidding. I'll stop. I'll stop bringing that up. All right. So hopefully Tim can join us here, because I know he's watched a lot of probably Bountiful along with Orem, who I forgot. Apologies to Bountiful. Oh, look, Tim's coming back up. He's on the move though. What you doing, Tim? We're all. Let's see. You have chosen to mute yourself. You have self-muted, Tim. Are you moving?
I'm just trying to find a charger.
Okay.
My phone is like dying. It's awful.
That's so funny.
Yeah, that's gonna happen.
I feel bad about it.
You should feel bad about it. I'm gonna take you off stage. Let me know when you get a charger. You find a charger?
Yeah, I found a charger, but I gotta figure out which one of these ports work, because it seems like there's no electricity.
All right.
It's fine. It's
fine.
It's fine. You guys just let me be unplugged. You know what I mean? let me do my thing.
Are you good now? Did you find a charger?
I mean, I have a charger, but none of these wall sockets are working. It doesn't matter. This is an official podcast. You need to keep it professional.
We are so professional. Okay, let's Tim, you better freaking figure this out, because we're on number 5, Orem, and number 4, we're just going to skip over if you don't get this figured out.
No, I'm doing it on purpose because I don't want to talk about them.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
I love it.
The Orem. No. Let's hear about the Orem Tigers. What do you guys got? I know we got Kai is down there. Got Chance. Jax Allen is there, right? I mean, I'm assuming that obviously when you lose a kid like Anthony, that's going to be hard, similar to Juan Diego. But it seems like Orem still got a pretty stacked roster returning.
Tim, what do you think? Go ahead.
Oh, great. What do I think? I'll tell you what I think. No,
you're leaning up against the wall.
It doesn't matter. Here's the thing. Here's the thing about Orem. Let me tell you about Orem, because they actually have one of my favorite point guards, or one of my favorite players. I really, really like Chance.
Me
Yeah.
too.
I really like Chance
Me
Dasher.
too.
He's underrated. You know, he doesn't turn it
Yep.
over. He's, you know, if he ever figures out that he's a pretty good shooter and becomes confident in that, then the league's in trouble, and so is the classification. But no, he's really good. I got a chance to see Jax Allen with those guys. You know, we're not going to talk about replacing Anthony because that's not the thing. He's a different type of guy. But if there is a guy that can come on and you know and kind of sneak his way into some shoes in that way and give them what they need in terms of dynamic scoring, playmaking. You know, I think he's a kid to watch out for. Obviously, you have Kai, who's got a year of experience and he's a monster. Another kid that if he decides to push the button of a dog and really lean into that, then he could make a huge jump not only for his own self but also for their team, and they can be right back in the position that they were last year. So, and then they got some shooting around him, and
Mhm.
Jace coaches them up, and he coaches them to shoot it and play with confidence, and they're tough, and I like their team. I like their team a lot.
Well,
Yeah, I mean,
December 6th, Judge is going to be playing Orem, and I have to go to Dubai to meet with the United Nations, and I was like, well, I got to be back by December 6th, so I got
What
my
kind
trip
of
planned.
what kind of life do you lead? Like, I'm I don't know, man.
I
Like
just
one
hey,
day I'm
flew in
waiting for you to
Dubai
like
with the
pop up.
world leaders.
I
You're gonna pop up on the news one day, and I'm gonna be like, I knew it. I don't
I
know what it's
knew
gonna
it.
be for, but
I
I
knew it.
knew it.
I'll be there though.
That's funny.
AJ, what do you got? By the way, Kev says we're doing great. Appreciate you, Kev. Number
Hey,
one
thanks.
commenter. Also
We
the Orlando.
really
you know,
appreciate it.
I'm glad that Tim brought up Chance Dastrup, because I've been screaming from the rooftops about how much I love this kid's game for the last 3 or 4 years. I remember watching him Utah Drive. Obviously, his dad's coaching. I remember him watching him play a really good stealth team back in Youngblood, right after the 8th grade team, and I literally watched Chance take apart this entire team
Mhm.
with his skills. And I think he only had maybe 6-8 points. But what he does, he just guts you. Like like Tim says, he doesn't turn the ball over. He gets himself in trouble sometimes when he's pressured, and then he turns it over in some of those kind of spots. But when he's running the offense, he's delivering the pass on time to shooters, to cutters. I honestly can't say enough good about Chance Tastrip. I really love his game. I'm interested to see what kind of work he's put in over the summer to come back, to dial that shooting in, like Tim talked about. Obviously, when you lose a guy like Anthony, I mean, Anthony's, and I had somebody make a comment on my page saying that Orem might be better without him, and I was like, I
Come on.
felt like deleting the person because I'm like, Anthony's different.
Yeah.
He's just different. Now, with that being said, you bring a guy like Jax Allen in, who I'm really high on, very good defensive player. I watched him a lot over the summer playing on 3SSB with prospects. He can score. It's not his MO. He's not a break it down type of guy. He's not as dynamic as maybe somebody like Anthony is. But, you look up and Jax Allen have 15, 18 points, go along with 7, 8 rebounds, 4 or 5 assists. I mean, and he plays really good defense. Obviously, we know about Kai and what he's about. Kai obviously is riding a high playing football, picking up the University of Utah, where I expect him to be more physical this year, which Tim mentioned, if he can just flip that switch and get that, lock that dog in. And I saw a little bit of it. I watched a couple of their Section 7 games. He looked different. But then you got another guy that nobody's mentioned that you're going to want to pay attention to, Trey Hyatt. Now, Trey Hyatt's just a workhorse. He was on our team all summer, and he is an absolute workhorse. Nice, smooth jump hook, rebounds his tail off, plays really good defense. He's really underrated, and he plays much bigger than he is. He's only about 6'4", 6'5". But if you look at the pieces that they have there, Orem's going to be there. And I think that the ability that Chance has to run that offense and allow them to execute, obviously losing Anthony's a big, big deal. But I think that they'll be there, towards the end of this. I really like Orem. And I love Coach Tavita. He's my kind of guy. Like, he's up in him. Like, he's motivating. He's yelling at the other coaches. I remember when they won the quarterfinals last year, he walks up to me and gives me a high five. He said something to the effect like, we're not surprised. Right. And that's what he preaches. And so, he will have those guys ready to rock. And now he can play, hey, we're the underdogs. Everybody's counting us out because somebody like Anthony left the program. He'll use that to motivate those guys. They'll be ready to rock and roll. I like Orm a lot this year.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, the only team that is really on this list that I've really actually watched play is Highland. I caught a few games last year. I watched Isaiah play a lot. I watched Soren play a lot. Recently I've seen Vi play quite a bit. I'm trying to think of we saw Jack Anderton play at the top 50 next. We're gonna go to Tim first because Tim's obviously
I'll sit this one out.
Well, no, you got to jump in too. You made Tim jump in and talk about your kid. But I will say, the thing.
Tim and I back and forth on my page about Highland and what we got this year. So we've gone down this road.
I can't wait. But I will say, watching being a dad and watching someone like Isaiah play since, for me, it's really like 7th grade, and seeing him develop as a player, and his development of his court sense, his development of his defense, and even like we played out in Las Vegas and we played a couple of New Balance, now Puma Next teams. I think we played one, and then we played all 3 SSB teams. And in those games, Isaiah just said enough. And he, in front of, coaches like Texas, Notre Dame, Utah was there. There were a lot of coaches there to watch the other team, and Isaiah just said, "Nope, we're not going out like this." In a game that, there's teams at Indiana Elite's blowing at everybody by 30, 35 points in this thing. We take them down to the buzzer. I think Isaiah had 30 in that game. So he has really taken his playmaking, I think, to another level beyond what I saw as a freshman. And Soren also developed a ton over the summer, just as a shooter. He's gotten stronger. I think he's gotten a lot more confident. So I'm only really high on Highland because it's in their name, number one. Number two, I'm a fan of the Denver Nuggets, the Mile High City. And number three, I'm a CSU Ram. And so I already have the Rams gear. So that's my really in-depth analysis.
Wow.
Tim, what did I
This is good.
This is all the information that people wanted to know.
Really good.
But Tim, I know that you've also been talking up the big guy George McClunky. So
Yeah.
tell me tell us a little bit about Highland. You're at like practices and stuff, so you probably know a lot more.
No, for sure. I think Highland might be, and I'm gonna go slow. I think Highland might be the only team on paper that should be able to play any style. So they've got a legit big 6'11" George, who now has become I'm not going to call him a force yet, but he's gotten a ton better, and he's really playing well. You have Cepha Brown back, who's BYU football commit. You have Jack Anderson, who's really come on strong here lately. And Jack will be a kid that'll be tough to game plan for, because he can really do a lot of things. And he's one of those guys you look up and he's got 15 or 17, and he's actually a really good defender because he's willing. And so he kind of takes the challenge that way. So you got those guys. You got Vi transferring in, who's going to be really good for us. I think he'll be good in January, to be honest, because I don't think he got enough reps where he was previously, but you can tell he's got a lot of things that he's going to bring to that deal. You got Matt. Shoot, he can really
Matt
shoot.
Lansing, yeah.
The Matt Lansing, 130 pounds, soaking wet. But but he's a kid that you can't not play. He doesn't look the part, but he makes shots.
And all of a sudden he's got 6 threes, and you're like,
and he's got 6 threes.
Yeah,
and without a miss sometimes, right? So,
yep.
It's gonna be a matter of how tough we're gonna be as a team. It's gonna be a matter of obviously point guard play. I think Isaiah's improved. He's improved his game with the ball in his hands. He's gonna have to play better with the ball out of his hands. He's also gonna have to play. If he can develop into a leader, into a vocal leader, I think he leads by example. But he has not quite yet become a vocal leader. And I think sometimes with young kids finding their voice, right, and being okay, they Snapchat, they text message, they don't talk, right? And so if he finds his voice as a leader, if he understands the importance of that, then I think they'll go as far as I mean they have a chance to go all the way. And I'd say that obviously, I mean, those things are not easy things to do. You don't just wake up and say, I'm going to talk. You could, but or you wake up, I'm going to be tough. But I think if they can find that toughness, then it'll be an interesting year. It'll be an interesting year. I'm proud as a father. But even if Isaiah wasn't my son, I mean, to watch him from a distance and to separate myself as a dad and just watch him as a coach, to watch how he improved, I mean, I'm super, super proud of him.
Listen to your
And
dad, Chunk. That's what he's trying to say. Listen to your dad.
I'm
The loudest guy in the freaking court.
no, man,
Uh,
he's been really, really good. So I'm excited to watch and have a close eye in on Highland this year.
That's awesome. AJ,
Obviously, they have the best high school coach in basketball, in my opinion. And it's not me, by the way.
No, it's not. It's not Tim Drisdom.
No, it's Chris Jones.
Christopher Jones.
And I always have something to say. So let me put Isaiah aside because I've gushed on and on about what I think about that kid. I think he's amazing. I think he's a game changer. I said 2 years ago that I think he'll be the best 2026 when it's all said and done. So I'm really high on Isaiah, and that's not because Tim's on there. You can go and check my track record. There's two guys that I want to talk about on this team that I think are going to be the X factors. You mentioned one of them, Sepha Brown.
Mm-hmm.
He's a guy that physically people are going to have to deal with. And when you throw George in the mix and how well he's developed and come along, that makes Sepha even more dangerous because Sepha can run the floor. Sepha can actually step out and shoot the three a little bit, the lefty stroke, and he can finish at the basket, right? And so he's going to be a guy that you're going to want to pay attention to. If they can get some good rebounding, some production out of George, hey, we need a bucket, let's throw it in there. Let him do that sweeping hook across the lane. Another guy that we've talked about, you and I have, Tim, is Grayson Gaddis. When you look at Grayson's upside, and I've seen him play for 3 years now. My son played with him on Utah Premier when he played up. Grayson is a guy that he is capable of making 6-7 threes in a row if you don't guard him and if you don't pay attention to him. Now Grayson's 6'5". I think he's 6'6", probably all of 6'6", right?
Yeah, about 6'6".
Yeah, can jump out of the gym. I know that, you guys have been working on him, especially in the weight room. That's what he needed. If you look at the Highland team, I mean, I'd say as far as on paper, you got everything. You got everything you're going to need, right? You got shooting. Gaddis can get hot from outside. Obviously, Jack has played really well as of late, and you've seen him come on a little bit. Obviously, you got size. You got Sepha. You got George McConkey, and you got a great, great point guard. Highland is a team that they're going to be dangerous, and I'm excited to see what Highland does. The thing that I look at with Highland, and Tim, you and I have talked about this, is you look at Alta, you look at Olympus, and it's going to come down to guard play, and those two teams are battle-tested in those bright lights, right? And so it's going to be how quickly can Chunk get these guys playing all together and at a high, not just a level to compete, but a level to win. I think he's capable of that, but I think that's what we're going to want to watch for is when they flip that switch or turn that corner where they're playing, on the level of the Geordies and the championship level, not as far as talent goes. They have that ability, but, the aces where they've been there, done that. And sometimes that provides an edge in those tournaments when it comes down to it. And so it'll be interesting to see how fast Chunk can get those guys to say, get on the bus, we're rolling. And it'll be fun to watch. I think, guys.
Yeah, that's a great point, and and I think even that's piggybacking too on just the leadership piece, right? Like, we're gonna go as far as he decides he wants to lead, and that's not that just is what it is, right? That's what it's gonna depend on. The other kid too, and I didn't mention him, but Soren's really improved. And he adds another element from a big guy who's on the perimeter that can knock down shots. He's going to block some shots. But he's really improved putting the ball on the deck. But like you said, just the main thing is the experience piece. Thankfully, Jonesy has allowed those guys to make their mistakes last year and get their feet wet because I think it'll be a big deal moving forward.
Well, guys, we've been talking about basketball for almost an hour now, and we got 4 more teams left. So, I'm sure we probably could have like broken this up into 2 segments or sessions or whatever we want to say, but we don't really know what we're doing, so we'll just keep on cruising. It feels like we sort of tipped over a little bit into kind of the 4 teams that I'm guessing most people expect to challenge Alta. Would that be pretty fair to say in terms of, in terms of Highland, Olympus, Springville, and then you've got, who else did I miss on there? We got Highland, Olympus, Springville, and then you got Alta. So,
Right.
does that sound about, I mean, obviously anybody can win. You've got a bunch of 16, 17, 18-year-old kids running around on the court and in a single elimination state tournament, so anybody can win. But would it be is what maybe Prep Hoops and Deseret News are saying are, hey, there's kind of these 4 teams that are all gonna have various levels of ways that they could beat Alta, but AJ, like you said at the outset, it's really Alta versus everybody else and who's gonna step up. It kind of feels like we reached that point though with Highland. It's like, yeah, on the right night, Highland could beat Alta in a state tournament game, in a semifinal. If it's not out of the nobody would be like, oh my gosh, it's the upset of the century, if that happened. But is that about right? Does it feel like that's kind of where we're at in terms of where we're at on these top 10 lists?
For sure. I mean, I would definitely say, oh, wait a minute. Am I back?
Yeah, no, you're here. You're alive.
On my screen, it says I have 5% and like 3/4 of my body is gone off my screen. It doesn't matter. I need a new phone so you guys can get some offering or some donations or something.
Let's all pray. Hey, if
Um,
anybody wants to buy this, I've got a special. I've got some oil
uh,
that's on a prayer blanket, so everybody can
listen,
send it in for minutes.
before my phone dies, I want to give these guys their flowers. Alta's really good, and their state champions. They're not flukish. They have it all. They have it. I mean, they lose one guy. They obviously have high level guys at almost every position. They have great role players, and they've won. And as a guy who's played and did my fair share of winning, you have an edge when you're used to winning. And so you can't just walk in and hype your way to beating Alta. Like you got to go out there and you got to go beat them one possession at a time, and you got to be able to weather storms that they've already weathered, on their tournament run. You've got to make big shots that they've already made when their numbers are called. And so it's definitely Alta against everybody else. We can talk until we're blue in the face about who matches up best and all the things. We get 2 cracks at them in the regional, which I think is a gift for us. And we get 2 cracks at Olympus, which is another gift for us, right, at Highland. And so I think the way that it's shaping up, man, I think we're all going to be smiling come the end of February, because it can get really, really interesting. And we've all got, obviously there's guys on those teams that we all really love and respect. And, but yeah, it's Alta against the field for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. And, when you look at this, though, and Prep Hoop has Springville ranked number 2. I think Olympus is the second team there just because of what Tim just said, right? They're battle tested. They're used to winning. Dutch is a big time problem, right? Nobody's figured out how to keep him out of the 20s in 3 years. And so I think that they're going to be playing with a chip on their shoulder because I think it's their senior year. Everybody's counting them out. Springville's got a guy that you're going to want to, pay attention to, and Andrew Miller. He's a transfer in from Vegas. You've probably seen his highlight reels dunking all over the place, but you throw him in the mix with Mason Hansen and a big like Jamin Sondrup. They're going to be a team that I don't know where I don't think they fall at number 2 because I think it's Alta, I think it's Olympus, I think it's Highland, I think it's Orem in those spots. But Olympus is going to be a team that they're going to have something to say at the end of this. What a great region, though! Oh my gosh. I mean, I might just come over and watch your guys' games. But, speaking to Alta, a guy like Carter Doliak, who's made the leaps that he's made through the summer and through the fall. I mean, there was a highlight of the Great Western Classic where he goes baseline, pulls it back, and just cranks it. Well, we didn't see that last year, right? Yeah. And so if you elevate him alongside Jackson Johnson, who just committed to Tim's alma mater, which is awesome, and then a guy like Ace, who's really playing some big-time basketball right now. I mean, I think it's Alta versus the field. I'm excited to see who's going to step up and turn that corner. But, man, this 5A is going to be so fun to watch because there's so many teams that are going to say, we have the guys to do it. It's going to be interesting to watch them and see how they progress through the season and see what happens in the tournament, because it only takes one game, right? Somebody gets hot, out you go.
Yep, no doubt. I mean, I think it would actually be really fun, and I don't know if there's a way to do this or not, but at the end of the year, you've got the 6A champion, the 5A champion, 4A and the 3A champion. I don't know. Let's just say there's those 4, and just let them play like a best. Because I feel like, I mean, obviously there would be not every team would be competitive in that.
4A is a problem this year for one team, and that they all got to deal with Dixie.
They all got to deal with Dixie. Yeah, we're gonna.
It's 4A. It's Dixie and the field, even probably more so.
No doubt. I've got
for sure.
I've actually got my guy Hector Marquez is going to come on and break down 4A with me in a similar way. So I'm excited for that. Yeah, it's a great. I think 5A is stacked, like we all said. I mean, it is Alta versus the field, but the field is, I think, ready, and I'm excited to watch. I mean, I'll see a bunch of these teams when AJ's playing them. My son AJ, not you, AJ. You're too old to play high school basketball. Hate to break it to you.
I don't know, but there's a lot of weird reclassing going on.
I saw some story. It was like Memphis guard, 27 years old, denied eligible. I was like, good. He's 27. Yep. Get out and go play in Europe or something, man. Like, get out of here. Well, hey, before we go, and I know, Tim, you got to probably bounce, but today was, was signing day. And I saw Tiger Cuff signed up at Weber State.
Yeah.
Any other, obviously Jackson Johnson is going to University of Utah.
Brody going to USC.
Yeah, Brody's going to USC.
Yep.
Blake Rawson at American Fork signed with CSI today. So
good.
That's awesome for him.
Yeah. Awesome. And then the Wasatch kids, Taj is San Diego State. We got the Mobley kid going to, I believe it's Ohio State.
Yep.
And
then they got one other kid. Yeah, Malik
Tialo.
The kid that just signed at BYU, he's a prospect kid. I'm trying to remember his name.
Isaac Davis.
Yeah. Signed with BYU. He's a good player. Yeah, good player.
Yeah.
So, no, congrats. It's a huge day. It's a big day for those guys. For sure.
I never had that day, but I know you did, Tim. So congratulations. I'm sure you can. No one was ever like, what's your signing day? I'm like, business major at Colorado State.
Yeah.
No, it's a special day for those guys, and congrats to their families. It's hard to play Division I basketball now. It's hard to come out of high school and to have that opportunity. Those guys they've earned it. No matter what anybody says, each guy has earned their opportunity, and hats off to them, and best of luck to them, especially, in the future. But now they get to go have fun and play a high school season that's free of all of that. And they should really relish that, enjoy that.
Totally agree. Yeah, there's 400 to 450 Division I kids coming from high school nowadays. The number's gotten lower and lower and lower. So, if you're one of those, man, that's an incredible achievement. And so congratulations to anybody who can go play in college right now. I mean, it's tough, and we'll talk about that a lot, I'm sure, on the podcast, trying to dispel this myth of just like, oh, well, if I don't get the offer to BYU, I'm going to go to Slick. It's like, well, there's 9 Division I players on Slick. So you can't
It's not happening.
Just so you know, they're like, what? So, yeah, well, pretty good basketball, actually.
Yeah. I think their point guard started at UVU last year. So,
yeah. My backup plan is Westminster. Yeah, they're pretty good. They're really good at basketball. Yeah. That's your best plan, actually, is probably what it's going to be. Well, Tim, AJ, did you guys want to add anything before we wrap up here?
Let me just say, because I might die, but thank you guys for having me on.
That was really dark. You mean your phone might die?
That's what I meant. My phone might die. I'm also in Los Angeles, so I mean, who knows? Anyway, no, but thanks for having, and thanks for the platform. I love the banter. I love the objectivity or objectiveness, whichever word you want to use for that. But I couldn't think of a better way to spend an hour freaking out as to whether or not my phone was going to die. But so all the kids out there, man, good luck. Work your butt off. Continue to get better, and we'll get it figured out.
We'll have you back on.
We need to come back on and do the 6A, because I've got a lot to say about 6A. 6A is going to be a very interesting classification this year. It's going to be awesome.
All right. Well, we'll make it happen. Well, AJ, everyone go check out what AJ's doing over at Northern Utah Ballers. Oh, Tim is gone.
And
also I apologize on Twitter. I put the wrong link on there and I couldn't adjust it. But you want to talk about your new venture? Because I still think it's really great.
Yeah, so gamefilmelite.com, go onto the website, check it out. Um, if you don't have a full game film at your disposal, you're going to lose opportunities, because the first thing that somebody asks for, and I've had this happen to kids that I've tried to help get recruited, is, do they have tape? They're not looking for your highlight tape. They want tape, right? They want a full game to see what you do. So as the high school season gets rolling, make sure you get access to those games, get on our platform, and let's get some evaluations done. Get these coaches, looking at your film and giving you some feedback. The Carroll College head coach texted me about 2 hours ago and like, I'm still ready for this. Let's go. So these coaches are ready for you. They're wanting to talk to players, just like we have here in Utah. And there's one more day to go on my Northern Utah Ballers page and to sign up for a free giveaway. So you can have 3 games that are evaluated by college coaches, and then you get a 1-hour live session with that evaluator, that college coach. And you can ask them anything. You can ask them about your game, and they'll give you recommendations on what they see. But they'll also help you kind of navigate this road that you're trying to go down, and ultimately, hopefully, help you get to where you want to go. So it's a great platform. The feedback's been phenomenal. Go to gamefilmelite.com. You see it there on your screen, and let's keep improving, because, like I said the other day, business is booming here in the state of Utah. So it's an exciting time. Appreciate you having me on here. It's been so fun.
It was so fun. Yeah. Really appreciate it, AJ. Thanks, everyone. Go check out gamefilmelite.com. Also, if you're watching this live, or if you're watching a replay, but you don't get my emails when the new episodes come out, you can go to utahbasketball.net. If you're still listening an hour plus in, then you are a Utah basketball junkie and a huge Utah Hoops fan, and we appreciate you. If you got any recommendations for people to come on, please let me know. Drop me a note, and we'll make it happen. Thanks, AJ. Thanks, Tim.
Awesome.
Everyone be safe out there, and play hard. Don't yell at the refs. Treat your
Game
parents
on.
well. Let's
It's
go.
game on. Let's go.
See y'all.
See ya.